What Mike didn't tell you about me is that I am a brand new Lego League robotics coach. And as I look at the year ahead and I'm planning for it, I realize I need to build a Lego table so that the kids can run their robots. And so, of course, I go right to my laptop and I open up Google and YouTube and dial it in, and I get this great video on how to build a Lego table. And I look at it, I'm getting all the information, I shut my laptop and I stand up, and I can't build a table. But isn't that the way things are these days? With all the information out there, we think that we could just dial information up, and as long as we get it into our head, then we'll be able to do something. Even in education, we can't seem to shake that model. So where do we stop this? I'd like you to think about your last formal professional development experience. Most likely, it was probably an administrator who brought in an expert to your staff, or they sent you to an expert, and there at the workshop, you got a lot of ideas, and you were energized about what you were learning, and no doubt, you received a handout on all that information. And as you moved on back to your classroom and you set your handout down on your desk, continued on with your day, when you returned back to that handout, you realized that you didn't know where to start. I used to be one of those trainers, and I was so proud of myself for my slick presentations and my engaging demonstrations and how energized the teachers were in my sessions. In fact, I really loved reading the evaluations at the end of the session because they said things like, "Great trainer, so many ideas and information. I can't wait to do this in my classroom." And then I got a job in a school district where some of those same teachers worked that I had taught in my sessions. And as I got to know them better, I realized that the impact I thought I was making as a trainer was far, far from reality. See, it's not just about information transfer. At that time, I had the opportunity to work with my colleague, Wayne Feller, to develop a new professional development model. And we spent about 3 weeks brainstorming. What is it about PD that doesn't work? How can we make it better? And we realized that we were doing it all wrong, that the teachers didn't need us here. They needed us here when they took the knowledge that they had learned and they wanted to apply it in their classroom. So with the support of building administrators, we created a model where we brought in substitute teachers who rotated throughout the day to relieve teachers on a monthly basis to meet with us. And in this very, very intimate, personalized work, it was here that my ideas about effective professional development changed. We've heard a lot of great speakers already today, and in my head, I can't help but have this theme that's going throughout. Teachers have the power to push the boundaries. In fact, I was having a conversation already today with a teacher, and we said, what would it be like if we just moved forward without permission? Can you imagine that? So I'm going to tell you 3 stories today about 3 very different types of teachers that I've worked with. I've worked with low-tech teachers who are completely afraid of technology, your average technology user, and then your high flyer. And I truly believe that each of these stories would not be here if these teachers were relying solely on a workshop setting to learn from. So Stacy is a 2nd grade teacher, and she was very nervous about using technology. In fact, the first year that I spent working with her, all we did was work on the basics of technology. How to create an email list, how to set up and maintain a very simple website to communicate with parents. And it was only after that that she was comfortable enough to commit to doing a project with her students that involved technology. So she said to me one day, she said, "Kristin, I have these iPads in my classroom, and I really want to use them, but I don't even know the first question to ask about them." Okay, do you know these types of teachers? And so I'm listening to her, and she says, I want to do a project. I want it to be meaningful. And in my head, I'm going through all the awesome things that I could have her do, but so as not to scare Stacy away, I remain very calm. And I say, well, I think your second grade students could blog. And with the B word, her eyes frightened up, because I said that, the B word, right? And I said, don't worry, I'll do it with you. And I did. I went into her classroom, and I taught her students how to use the iPad as a camera, how to take videos, and how to use the blogging app and upload that information and write about what they were doing in the classroom. And by the end of the week, her second grade students were blogging about everything. They blogged about the guppy who had live babies. I didn't even know that happened. They were blogging about the potato plants that weren't doing well, and they were blogging about their math activity challenges. And Stacy was comfortable, in fact, confident in what had happened. You see, all Stacy needed was to know why and how to use the iPads in her classroom with her students. She needed to experience a successful project that was just right for her tech skill. What's amazing is that the teacher that works across the hall from Stacy noticed what her kids were doing and approached me one day. She said, I don't know what you're doing with Stacy's kids, but I want to do that with my kids. Can I? So the impact of Stacy's project had already passed outside of her classroom doors. Now Mark, an average technology user, came to me with a problem. He said, I have this problem, and I think that it can be solved with technology. I'm a science teacher, and as a science teacher, I do 1 or 2 labs a week with my students. This means 125 lab notebooks that I have to go through one at a time, open up to the right lab, find the conclusion statement, read it, and grade it for that one student. Start all over again, go to the lab so you get that. So together, Mark and I sat down and figured out a solution where now his students come into the classroom, they use the laptops that are there, and together with their lab partners, they enter in the observation data and then independently submit a conclusion. That conclusion ends up in a spreadsheet on Mark's computer, and now he reads 125 conclusion statements in column D with the student name right next to it. So all Mark needed was a little bit more information about a tool that he was already familiar with, so that he could use that tool to solve a problem that he had. Now Carol is a high flyer. She uses technology really well, and she knows how to use it. And she had this idea for her 6th grade language arts students to capture the stories of the seniors living in the senior resident home down the street from the school. But she just didn't know how to design this project. And so my colleague sat down with her, and together they designed the project so that the end product would be a digital book about each of these residents. And she armed her students with cameras and video cameras and audio recorders. Okay, let's just face it, that's an iPad. And they went in and they captured audio and interviews of these residents. You see, Carol didn't need tech information. She just needed help designing the project, and then we provided her with the resources and support to get it done. One of those residents passed away after that project had been completed. And the family of this resident was so grateful that the life story of this person had been captured. Their younger lives, their school days, interviews about their life and their children. So you see, Carol's project wasn't even about technology. It was about sharing the story. So you see, 3 teachers, all different levels of technology ability, were able to grow and succeed through a project. And it didn't end there. In fact, Stacy's blogging project has spread across the district. And now 2nd grade students all over the district are blogging every day. And Mark's scalable solution, of course, has become very popular with his colleagues. And Carol's project about creating a memoir has become an annual project that her students do about themselves every year. So now you see what teachers can do when given the support and resources to drive their own learning and ideas. They get stronger, they become confident in their abilities, and they're empowered. And they impact not only their students, but their colleagues, their district, and their community. Thank you.